Has its own six-point plan. Jess Wilson is Shadow Minister for Education and the member for Kew and joins us this morning. Hello, Jess. Welcome to you.
Good morning.
What can you tell us about this six-point plan?
Well, today we are putting forward a plan that's going to give families confidence in the system again. We've seen confidence absolutely shattered over the last few weeks with these horrific allegations of abuse in childcare centres. And what I'm really concerned about is we're taking too long to act. The government has put in place a review which is looking at other reviews. And what we've put forward today is a six-point action plan that will focus on a number of key things, including rapidly putting in place a registration system for all childcare workers so we know if there are red flags. We're looking at installing CCTV. We're looking at making sure parents have a right to know when there are incidents in the workplace. Looking at training standards. And of course, really much focusing in on how do we make sure that the Working with Children's Check system is actually doing its job and the system is reporting when it needs to. We're seeing there's too many loopholes in the system. The government has failed to act.
So the Working with Children check is something that your plan is specifically really honing in on, and the fact that while you have to have a police check to get a Working with Children's check, it then doesn't link the two. So if the police are to look up your name, it won't necessarily say if you have a Working with Children's check or not.
That's right. And so part of our plan is actually linking it to the police database, the LEAP database. So if the police are investigating someone, where they look someone up, it will identify the fact that they have a Working with Children's check and they can flag that there may be a concern here. At the moment, a Working with Children's check can only be rescinded or rejected on the basis of criminal charges or convictions. Now, in 2022, the Victorian Ombudsman said that's not good enough, that leaves too many risks in the system, and warned the government that they needed to make urgent changes. The government ignored those changes, and we've seen an incident now up in Horsham where a man was convicted of holding onto child sexual abuse material. He was being investigated, his house had been searched, and yet nothing was done with his Working with Children's check, and he could still go into a childcare centre and did go into a childcare centre after his house was searched. That material was possessed by the police, and yet the Working with Children's check remained valid. The system is simply broken. The government has absolutely failed to act.
So a part of this plan is the psychometric testing for those working in childcare. What can you tell us about the process around that and what you want that to achieve?
Well, what we're concerned about is when we see early childhood educators in particular go into the workforce, they need to undertake a Certification 3. Now, that can only take 3 or 6 months. It's a very quick qualification. But these are people who are going to work with the most vulnerable in our community, going into childcare centres and working with children every single day. So we want to make sure that the content of those courses is very much focused on child safety standards and making sure we beef that aspect up, but also the right type of people are going into these jobs. And we're thinking about how do we pilot a program around making sure that the right person with the right characteristics, the right reasoning wants to go into working in childcare, similar to when we look at police force and doing online aptitude testing to make sure that the character fits that role and that really important role in our society in terms of looking after our most vulnerable.
So the government is doing their rapid review that'll be finalised by August. The Liberal Party says that's taking too long. Is there a chance that it's just being really thorough and making sure that it's getting it actually perfectly right?
Well, what we know is that there are immediate actions we can take today to keep children safe in childcare. The review can take place, and if there are more actions coming out of that, we've said we're ready to stand and work constructively with the government. This should be a bipartisan approach. Their politics should be taken out of this, but we know there are things that can be done now.
Sorry, you keep going.
No. What concerns me most is that we've had warnings on the system for years now. The Working with Children's check system is broken in Victoria. It's not working. Why are we waiting for a review to look at another review instead of actually making sure we put in place legislation that will tighten and strengthen that system immediately? My other big concern with the review is that the government has explicitly cut out any look at the regulator itself. It has said we're not allowed to look at the regulator. And this is a massive problem because it's actually what makes sure that there is enforcement and compliance across the sector. That's why we've said we want to spin out the regulator and have an independent statutory watchdog.
Does the six-point plan that you've come up with, does it give the Liberal Party a chance to speak to, families and women, perhaps something that the Liberal Party hasn't been great at in the past?
Well, We're doing this because we have a policy failure here and we want to make sure that children are safe in childcare. That's our number one priority. We're going to try and talk to as many people as possible, and I've spoken to so many families over recent weeks that are absolutely devastated by what has happened. I cannot imagine being a parent who got the phone call to say you have to take your child in for testing for an STI. A 6-month-old child, a 1-year-old. It is absolutely disgusting and horrific. We never want to see that happen again, and that's what we're focused on, and that's what I'm focused on every day, is keeping children safe in childcare.
Is there a concern that we need to pay childcare workers more, given that we'll be putting them through a whole new set of hoops to get to where they need to be to meet all of these standards?
Well, I think looking at the workforce as a whole is going to be really important moving forward, and I think that's part of a bigger piece. There's the training aspect, there's looking at the workforce more broadly. This is a workforce that is incredibly important across the state. We know that there are issues in terms of getting workers into regional Victoria, in particular childcare deserts, which obviously impact families. There's a big piece to do here on workforce, but first and foremost, we have to look at the safety of children in childcare.
Thank you so much. Jess Wilson is the Shadow Minister for Education and, of course, the member for Kew. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.